Hold on, everybody. Sorry, a little bit delay there. I got a little distracted. But we're going to kick this little video off here. It's Wednesday, January 26th. And I wanted to start doing maybe a series here of This Week in DTF, This Week in DTG, my experiences, and go through some of the forums that I'm a part of and maybe answer some of the questions that you might have about the process or about the software or about the shirts or about the inks or about the films or the powders. At least ones that I can answer through my experience. Now, if you don't know what it is that I do because you saw the link on the forum and just clicked it, I do print custom t-shirts. Excuse me, I didn't bring my water. I print them with direct to garment. I print direct to film. I do some HTV stuff. I kind of do a little bit of everything. I mostly do direct to garment. I do print them on a Chinese printer. Currently, it's an Epson 3880 based printer, and I have used several different inks, several different pre-treats, several different films, powders, kind of the whole shebang. So this week, I went ahead and tried some STS inks because local to me is Perfect Press HTV, which is a big vinyl supplier in Atlanta. And they also do solvent transfers, and they do like signed vinyl and stuff. But they started carrying DTF transfers. When I was in there, I saw them hanging up. They had some printed, and they're selling them. And they're actually carrying a commercial grade DTF printer in their facility that they're going to be selling. And so I was talking to the employees about what they were offering. And as it turns out, they're doing STS inks and film and stuff. So I got a bottle of white ink to try. I'm not too concerned about the colors. To me, the color inks are pretty much across the board. If it's going to be for an Epson-based type printer, it's going to be fine. But the white ink always makes a difference because I've had varied success with white inks. And I've tried Image Armor, and I've tried Kodak, and I've tried DuPont. I've tried the generic brand from American Ink Supply or All American Ink or whatever it is up there. I've tried Anthony Creek's inks. I've tried Big Boy Prince inks. So I've tried a bunch of them. So I was a little low on white, and I said, let's try this STS. So I got a bottle of it. I flushed out my lines. I filled it up, and I started printing them. And I got one sheet of DTF film from them because I still had a pack here from Big Boy that I was printing on. So I wanted to give it a go. And my consensus on the STS was on the DTF sheet, it printed fine. I mean, I had nice fluidity out of it. The color vibrancy was good. I didn't have any issues with that. Their film worked great. I printed some colors on that and just had excellent results with that, which is awesome. On the DTG side of things, it's not as vibrant. And when I spoke with an STS rep this week, he said that they do have a different formula for direct to garment, but give it a shot. So that's what I like to do. I like to just give it a shot because most of the inks that I've used that are direct to garment print direct to film just fine. My washability has been fine. So that's been kind of my take on it. I think if you run an Epson-based printer and you're doing DTF, the STS white for me worked great. And I did pair that. I think I still have Big Boy color inks in my printer currently. So that was my experience. The other thing that had happened this week was I was printing just fine, and then I all of a sudden dropped like 80% of my white, which just tends to happen, man. Sometimes you just get a blockage. So what do you do in a case when you start losing colors? Well, in my case, I usually start from one end and work my way back. So head cleans for sure. I try not to pull the head. I will pull the damper assembly off, suck ink through that, make sure there's no blockages in the dampers. I have before pulled the damper assembly off and found like dried up ink in the actual port of it that could cause flow issues. I have had cartridge flow issues, but this time I took it all out, took the head out. I soaked the head for a little bit while I was working on stuff. I reverse flushed it. I also took the manifold off the head, blew that out to make sure there was no blockage in the manifold. And then when I put it back together, I just pulled a little bit of ink through it as a reverse flush. I took my ink lines off the 3880, flushed water through all of those, make sure they were clean. There was no blockage in the lines. Put it back together, sucked all the ink out, and we were, a few head cleans to go, and we were back in business. So sometimes that happens. I usually try to do that like once a month, is just pull it out and just clean it out because the white ink separating. So One issue that I did run into this week was white ink separation overnight. Super frustrating. You know, basically wet cap the printer at night, come back the next morning, do a head clean, do a print, and you get like almost a watery white. You know, and this really only ever happens to white. The white just separates. So it ends up getting a little bit watery, and you got to run a few head cleans. Now, I haven't had this happen. I can't remember the last time I've seen this. And this was on a batch of Anthony Creek's inks, and I haven't had that happen before. So where it would separate that quickly. So I ended up shaking the cartridges. You print a good bit of white squares out of it, head cleans to get that through it, and then the white flowed fine. And I did speak with Anthony about this. He said it doesn't, you know, it could be many factors in there, room temperature, humidity. So my printer is inside my home, and the temperature stays around 70, 72. And I didn't have a humidifier in there. I did put one in there yesterday just to see if that would help with the overall just fluidity overnight. So if you have any questions and you join the stream, just type them in the chat and we'll answer them for sure. So moving forward, let's talk about some DTF transfers, because a lot of this I see pumping. I see a lot. I'm starting to see it pop up on TikTok. Obviously on the forums it's popular. Starting to see a little bit more of it here and there. And what are the pros and cons to using the DTF transfers, right? Why should you invest in one of these printers? What does it actually cost to actually get up and going? Or should you just continue to order your transfers from someone who prints them? And the reality of it is, if you're not going to sell apparel on the regular that requires it, it can still be a costly investment. And it's not just saying, oh, I can buy a printer for $1,000, or some of these guys selling converted printers for $1,500, $2,000 with software. Software makes a big difference. Let me make sure that is very clear. The software that you're using is damn near more important than the printer. So if you're buying a printer that comes with some Acro Rip 9, some straight garbage, let's just be honest, it's not great. And if you're out there printing with it, props to you. The software sucks. Okay, if you're using CAD Link, I don't have too much experience with that because I couldn't get it to cooperate with the printer that I have, but I do see a lot of people post up success stories with CAD Link. Software is important, and it's not cheap. You know, I paid almost $1,300 for White Rip, which is what I use on my direct-to-garment printer, and I do rather like White Rip. Hindsight, I probably would have went with Cathari, but it is what it is. It's what I've got. So your initial investment of the printer is one part of it. You also are going to need some consumables to go with it. You're going to need wet capping solution, head cleaning solution, extra cartridges. You're going to need inks. And how much ink are you going to need? You're going to go through literally 4-to-1 white ink to color, which is kind of a drastic difference. White ink is not cheap, but you are going to use a lot more of it, especially with printer heads that, you know, if you have 8 channels in your head, 4 of mine are white, 4 are color. We go through a lot more white here than color by far. You're going to need film. You're going to need powder. You're going to need something to put it in. You're going to need something to dry it. You're going to need something to press it. Now, if you're already doing high, heat transfer vinyl, you probably have a couple of these things. Maybe you're going to have a heat press at least, right? What do you use to bake the transfer? Now, I bake transfers with I baked it with my heat press. I put them in my oven. I have a smokeless tabletop grill. I've stuck them on that, on the griddle side of it. So I've done a few different ways to bake them, depending on the size of it. And I will say, oven works the best, by far. If you put your oven on like 250, you can set, I take a cookie tray, turn it upside down, put it in the oven, set my sheet on it, bake it for a minute, and it's out. And if you're curing it under your heat press, you certainly can do that. Just know it's going to take probably 3 or 4 minutes to melt that glue into the ink. So it can be a little bit longer, but you can use it. It's definitely a way to get you going out the gate. Outside of that, the powder is not too expensive. You can buy powder by the pound. A little powder goes a long way. Film, here's the issue with film. You're going to probably pay, if you're buying a 100-pack, about average $1 a sheet delivered. Right? Most people are selling for about $80 or so for a 100-pack of DTF film, and then whatever it costs to ship it to your location. Let's just call it $100. It's $1 a page. What is really frustrating is when you load it up and you have a small issue and you scrap it. And now if you're just using a desktop printer, every time you feed that sheet through, and it screws something up, but don't print right, it's $1 gone. So keep that in mind when you're out there printing up these sheets. You know, you don't have really a way to do a test print. So for you, what might be the smart way to do it is to take a piece, and before you start your prints for the day, put it in there and just run a nozzle check. Just let's get a baseline of where everything's at, right? Because a nozzle check can save you film. And then what happens with that, when you're done with it, you slice off the nozzle check and you can feed it back through there. It's not going to be a full sheet, but it'll still print the nozzle check. You can do that quite a few times, save yourself some film for sure, if you're using one of those. Now, I have a direct-to-garment printer, so I have a platen. I print my nozzle checks just on anything flat. You know, I have a flat free jet platen here. You can print it on just about anything. So keep that in mind. I can also just run straight prints right on my print bed and just blast ink out of it if I need to. So keep that in mind. Try not to waste as much consumables, because once you start wasting film, you get real frustrated. You sell a shirt for 20 bucks, shirt costs you $5. The ink's going to cost you, you know, $1, maybe 50 cents to $1. And then you start trash and transfers, and then each one takes 8 minutes to print or whatever. You start wasting time. Next thing you know, you've killed an hour and a half of your day. You haven't made anything. So your profitability goes way down. So keep that in mind. Now, what are some benefits to DTF transfers is printers don't take up, the desktop printers, put it that way, don't take up a ton of space. Commercial printers, pretty good size. But desktop, if you want to start at your little home hobby business, they don't take up a lot of space, and you can print damn near anything on it. Any kind of graphic can go on there, and you can pair it with other things like HTV. You know, if you want to put some gold foil, some chromes or something on it, some glitters, you can pair those together. Wicked cool. You also can just draw stuff up and print it. Having the ability to just print JPEG files, PSDs, PNGs is huge in the apparel line for me. You can also print very useful things like neck tags, sleeve designs, little inserts. I like to put little QR codes on the inside of my shirts. So if I'm out in public and someone asks me about it, I just have them scan my QR code, takes them right to my shop. You know, my link tree with all of links to everything that I do. So what I like about using it with the DTG machine specifically is that I can take little scraps of DTF film, put it on my platen, and just print small little designs. So I'm trying to eliminate my waste. I don't have to gang everything up. I'll just cut them, and I got a bunch of little 2, 3, 4 inch by 13 inch scraps that I can print all kinds of stuff on. You know, little itty bitty things, which is super nice. Also about printing them on your direct-to-garment printer is that if you have an issue, you can always just run it back through as long as you don't touch the film. You just reprint on top of it. Super useful. Can't do that with the desktop printers. But let's just say you want to get into it. You're a hobbyist. You're doing heat transfer vinyl now, which may or may not be cost effective. Depends. I had some t-shirt designs that would take up, say, a full back, and you're using, I don't know, a good 13 inch by 19 inch chunk of white vinyl. You know, that does add up because you don't really get to use the scraps once you cut it, especially on a larger plotter. And printing those could be more cost effective than using vinyl, even though vinyl typically seems less expensive. It's not always the easiest route to go, but it is a good addition to your arsenal. What I don't like about the direct-to-film transfers is just doing like a faded gradient kind of print on a black shirt. And I'll show you what I mean. Really, on any kind of shirt. And I'll show you what you have to do to kind of, let me pull up a shirt design here that would speak to that. Maybe help out a little bit here. It's gonna pick up something kind of cool here. It's not gonna work. Let's see. I'll just pull up one of these MMA shirts because I do print a lot of them. Alrighty. What I'm going to do is just pop over here on my screen right here. All right. So if you were going to print a shirt like this, I'm just going to zoom in on it. And you can see here where this fades out, this gradient fades out. And don't mind the quality of it because it's 72 dpi, the mock-up. But this fade here for me on DTF, it doesn't really coordinate well. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're using powder, which only has to stick to ink, and it's a very finite amount of ink, and you end up having this powder residue where it's kind of hard. And I can actually go grab a true to life example of this that I have one that I actually printed yesterday. I'm going to go grab that and I can show it up. So give me a second. Okay. And we're back. So here's an example here of a shirt that was printed on black with a DTF transfer. As you can see, the edge, not so amazing, right? See how it's really rough edge on the outside of the face? There's not a nice radiant fade to black like I get on my direct to garment print. Now, what can you do about that? There's a couple things you can do. You can either A, don't make designs like that. Make designs more like something like this, where it's all encapsulated in the design. There's no fade, solid color prints. No issues with that. I use those on black shirts all the time. They look amazing. Option 2 is you could half tone those edges. What does that mean, half toning? Half toning is putting a bunch of itty bitty little dots, cutouts throughout your whole design, which allows it to breathe. This does work well for DTF transfers. It makes the fade better. What I don't like is half toning the entire image. It does take away the vibrancy of it, because you're honestly taking away a bunch of the color that's in the design. You're punching a ton of little holes in it, which is not awesome. So keep that in mind. What I would do is I would half tone it. I would overlay the half tone, and I would just erase around there to where the fade starts, so that you have a nice vibrant color, and then half tone out. That could be a solution for doing something like that. And if we need some help, we can, I'd say I'll probably make a couple videos to help people with that, because what I've learned is that Photoshop is not everyone's native language on the forums. So keep that in mind as well. There are benefits to it. Now, printing on light colored shirts, I pretty much DTF every white shirt I get now. And one of the questions that pops up in the forum is, do you need to print a white underbase if you're printing on a white shirt? There is mixed reviews. Some people say yes, you need the white ink for the powder to stick to, for it to stick to the shirt. Some people say no. Personally, I don't print any white underbase on white garments. I run it through, I print color only, I powder it, I melt it, melts way faster. I press it, it's vibrant, it holds up well to washes, no issues. Now, in White Rip, I'm using the white environment to do this, so it doesn't print white anyway. But in other softwares, you would just turn off your white ink. So I have great success doing it. Not everybody has the same. There's another thing about DTF transfers that we can talk about. Are they all made equal, right? If I order a DTF transfer from vendor A, vendor B, and vendor C, am I going to get the same product from all three? And the answer is absolutely not. Now that sounds kind of crazy, right? But you won't. You're going to get 3 different products. You're going to get 3 different inks. You're going to get 3 different powders, 3 different films. The IC profiles are different. The color layout's different. They're probably not all going to look the same. So if you're going to print a big batch of something, get it all from the same person. You could have the same, look, my printer, I can set it up and print the same image on 2 different print settings and get 2 different images based on the environment. If I print 1440, 1440 or 1440, 720, I get 2 different images. The colors are not the same because the way that the printer designed, the way the RIP software works, you don't get consistency across the board. So you do have to keep that in mind. One of the questions I see happening is, should I buy this one? How to convert printers? Converting a desktop printer is not extremely difficult. What makes it convertible is really just the ability to A, have enough channels, 6 or more, to have at least 2 white inks and 4 CMYKs, right? Well, 4 extras for CMYK. Then you need a RIP software that will communicate with the printer so that you can actually print these designs. You can't just send it straight from Photoshop. So if the RIP software supports the printer, then you could convert it. Now that means you're going to need either replaceable cartridges or a CISS system, maybe a chip resetter. There's going to be different variations to different printers. I have seen, I think Big Boy was doing a video with an Echo Tank type printer, and you probably can get away with it. Honestly, I don't think there'd be longevity in it, but I think you could probably buy a pretty decent Echo Tank style printer, put the ink in there, and as long as you can stir it one way or another, stir that white ink, you're probably going to be okay for a while. And if you have an issue, maybe the print heads aren't that much. Depends on how big of a print you need to make, and your maintenance is really important, right? And it's not that you have to do a whole bunch of stuff every day. You just have to do small things every day. And if you get head strikes, you have to address them immediately, because a head strike will absolutely wreck a print head with the quickness. But what I want to do is I want to go through here and just answer some of these questions. Here's one from a Dominic on Facebook. You know what I might be able to do is pull these up and put them right here behind me. That'd be pretty cool. I don't know if I want to go through all that right now. I'll do that next time. But do you print white ink on designs that go on white t-shirts, or just CMYK is enough? And one of the answers is always need white ink for the powder and washability. Powder will not stick to lighter colors or gradients well. That I have, like I said, for me, that is false. I have excellent results doing it with just those inks. Other people say that CMYK by itself cracks. And, you know, look, here's another person. I don't, going on 15 washes, not one crack. So, you know, you're going to get mixed results. Misinformation. Everyone has a different journey. I think if you're printing on it and you're having issues, then there's something that you're doing wrong from the beginning, and it's not the white ink. How much do you guys sell your DTF transfer custom 10 by 10? This is a good question. How much should you sell them for? If you're printing them, how much should you sell them for? And if you're buying them, how much should you pay? The DTF market right now is on a downward slope. It's a price war straight into the ground, which sucks, right? I've seen people selling transfers for $10 to $13 a gang sheet. I've seen people selling them for $1.50 a square foot. If you have a giant commercial printer and you're printing rolls of film and you're printing hundreds of feet a day, yeah, you might be able to sell it for $1.50 a square foot. Maybe that's what it's worth to you. If you're printing at your home on your desktop printer and you're paying $1 for a sheet and it's costing you 50-75 cents in ink and it takes you 10 minutes to make one, you need to factor all of this in. It's not understanding that in any business, it's not just what the product costs, it's what the product delivered costs, the time involved, right? If you're printing 6 sheets an hour, you need to make a certain amount of money per hour to be profitable. So what should you sell it for? Let's see what some of these answers are. If anyone's got a, some people don't put their cost up here, honestly. Just kind of leave it fly. Let's see here. This guy charges $3 a square foot. Let's calculate here, just so we're clear. 13 by 19, we're just saying sheets, divided by 144. We're at 1.71 square feet. So if you're doing he's doing it $3 at 1.71. He's charging $5 a sheet at $3 a square foot. Now, clearly these guys are going to be printing off of a roll and doing that. Here we go. 13 by 19 sheet, as many images as you can fit. Anything over 50 sheets, $6 each sheet printed. Flat rate shipping. So $6 over 50. Doesn't say how much it is if you have less than that. So here's $3 to $3.50. Now keep in mind, if you're printing stuff at let's just say $5 a sheet, you're paying $100. You're paying $100 for a pack. You're going to sell that pack for $500, but you got to factor in also 100 prints at let's just say $1 in consumables, ink, powder, etc. It's $100. So now you're down to, see, you made 500, cost you 100 for the pack, cost you another 100 on consumables. So you're at 300 bucks. You're going to have a little bit of time involved, printing 100 sheets. Let's see how long that takes. 100 sheets, let's just say an average of 8 minutes a sheet, a print on a full gang sheet. So that's going to be 13 hours. So for 300 bucks divided by 13 hours, you've made $23 an hour. Not the worst. Not the worst, I guess. That is barring that you have 0 issues at all. No customer complaints, no screw ups, no throwaways. So realistically, you're probably going to be back down about 15 bucks an hour. All right. Move on to the next one here. Well, let's start with this. The answer to how much should you sell it for? Whatever you think your time, materials, and value is. That's what it comes down to. If you're printing quality prints, I'm telling you, they're going to get 10 bucks a sheet, right? You're saving somebody lots of time. Here's another one that, yeah, he did say starts at $10. So, yeah, there you go. That's what I like to see. All right. Any recommendations, waterproof tape electronics for the print head seal to prevent ink coming? So what he is asking, and I can pull this up. I'm going to throw this over here. I don't need the whole thing. Let's just disconnect this one right here so that we have a visual as well. Right? So right here we've got the print head cable asking if there's a way to waterproof it. This guy says, I use removable silicone sealant. Smells good and is easy to remove. Goop. Now what I have done on mine, and I don't do it on this cable. There's nothing really you can put on the cable. Maybe, there's nothing you can put on the cable. But what I have done is separated the actual manifold from the head. And on the circuit board there, I have hot glued the back side of where my pin connector is, so that if any moisture gets on that, it'll be sealed off. Hot glue doesn't conduct any electricity, so it's safe to do that. If you're worried about it, at the end of the day, the best answer and the best thing that you can have happen is don't get it wet at all. That's number one. Don't get it wet, and you'll be fine. All right. Let's move on to the next question that we can pull up here. What do we got? They need some design work. I'm new to DTF and recently saw these glitter DTF prints. Anywhere know where I can get these made? So what they have done, and I don't know about glitter, I want to say that what she's looking at is actually just, it's probably just a design file that looks like glitter in the actual artwork, but it's not actually glitter. What I have seen done is foil. I've seen people foil on ink and then press it on. That is, I've not tried it, but I have seen it. I've also seen it done on DTG, where they have foiled over the ink and the foil only sticks to the ink. Pretty cool. I don't really have a need for that in my creative designs, but maybe there is a way to add some glitter. I know they sell a ton of it down there at Perfect Press for glitter and all kinds of stuff. For me, glitter makes a giant mess. I don't know if I'd want to risk it, but I could see you maybe printing it, pressing it, maybe pressing some glitter onto something. Not something I'd really probably look into. I'd probably try to do a design a little bit differently if I was going to use print glitter. All right, here's a good question. How are you mailing your A3 Plus prints? How do you mail them? You print these things. How do you mail them? You don't want them to get scratched up. You got to print here. You don't want a bunch of abrasion to it. What I have done is I print my sheets. I stack them all up on top of each other. I take a piece of parchment paper, put it on the front and back of them. Then what I do is I take a cardboard box, I cut it so it's nice and flat. I put the transfers down, tape them down, parchment paper down, sandwich it together so it's box on box. Make sure it's just about maybe an inch wider than the transfer. It's not going to be huge. And then tape that sucker all the way around so it's flat, right? It's going to be hard to bend that box and damage them. The shipping size isn't going to be too crazy. You're already shipping something 13 by 19. There's no need to put it into a giant box, have them flopping around. So that has worked well for me. If you're going to ship transfers, try to ship them flat. I do see people roll them up sometimes, stick in a tube. That is also another way you can do it if you want to be careful and roll these things up like so and stick it in a mailing tube. As long as they don't squish the tube, you should be all right. If you're going to roll it, when you unroll it, it'll be a little bit curved up. Shouldn't be too big a deal. You could always lay something flat on it. All right, let's move on to the next one here. I always remember when you're shipping stuff, size matters more than weight when it comes to a lot of that. All right, let's see what else we got here. This guy, here's a good example of when you should you use DTF or not. Here we go. Let's pop this up. Andreas here is printing on these guys, right? These are like jerseys. Says he's using HTV currently. A lot of jerseys using HTV vinyl. Will DTF print have the same durability if done properly and getting around durability possible? My recommendation is keep doing that in vinyl. If you have a design that big in white, you might as well, you know, these two tones, these colors, you're going to want consistency. I would buy the vinyl. That's my recommendation. If I was doing something like this, that is so much ink to print that design. It would be better to gang sheet these and cut them on a plotter, because you can cut all of this and you probably cut all of that in one sheet, one go around. That's what I would recommend do. Now this guy here, I've seen him. He actually sells printers and inks and stuff, and knows a lot about DTF. Says he prints them no problem. My thing would be, you're going to end up probably using a lot more consumables. Like to print that, that's going to be, if you don't have a large roll printer, that's going to be, you know, probably 3 sheets of transfers. It's at least $3 plus ink and time and powder. I would even recommend doing that, not in the least bit. Is this a good representation of real-time speed? Kind of seems like it's sped up to me a little bit. But that's an example of a nice looking print for sure. All right, let's pull up the next one here. What else we got? What else we got? Let's see here. Kind of scrolling through here. See if I can come up with any more before I end the stream. Man, now that's a freaking printer right there, son. DTF UV printing. All right, let's pull up this question right here. So the story is that my white just wasn't solid. I mean, it just started printing, just a hint of white color. Someone suggested to change dampers. All of the colors were fine. Decided to replace waste ink pad and put in those DTF dampers for white color, smaller ones with bigger filter. As I was at it, I took out the head and cleaned it, put everything in their place, ran a few ink charges and a few purge sheets. No hint of any color. Took out the head again and just tried to flush a bit of air. Air bubbles with color are coming out of the nozzles. Put everything together again and made an initial ink charge, the one that takes 20 minutes, use loads of ink, still no hint of any color. Printer is working, everything is moving, it is printing. I mean that the head is moving, no error codes, but it doesn't put any inks down. Waste ink pad is still white. Can anyone suggest solutions to what could be wrong? So, and then another modification that was made, one-way fish tank valve and the waste ink hose. Every time I tried wet capping, it got contamination in the dampers. People decided to block the waste ink hose, and that this should solve the contamination problem. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a common problem you'll see on these forums a lot, which is I was printing, I started having some ink issues, so I took my print head out and I cleaned it and I put it back in, and now I don't get any print colors at all. No errors. It looks like it's working fine, it acts like it's working fine, but it ain't printing shit. Wet cap station is empty. What do I do? Well, the problem isn't what do you do, the problem is what did you do? The odds are is that you damage the head. That's the harsh reality of this. Rarely are you going to get nothing out of it. So the way these print heads work are they have little FISO plates on them, which are electronically charged. They have nozzles and they have FISO plates. And so what allows it to print is it's a little charge, they open up and it spits out ink. At the same time as they're open in your wet cap station, it is sucking it out, pulling it with not much pressure, right? It's not using a ton of force. What people end up doing is they take them out, and I do have a video on my channel of waterfalling a print head. You can do it successfully if you are extremely careful and you take all the precautions and you know the risk. The risk is when you waterfall it, you could fucking damage it and blow the seal out. Prints nothing. The other possibility is that they put it in there and it had moisture somewhere on the cable, somewhere on the ribbon, somewhere on the head. the head no longer works. What's happening is the printer is going about its business like everything's fine. Some signal is coming out of the head, but it's not going to print. And no matter what this person does, it's not going to recover that head. That is my guess, is that they damaged the head when they took it out because they weren't careful. You know, there's only a few things that stop that thing from printing. It's damaged electronics, super clogged up, or blown out FISCAL plate. The FISCAL plate is glued to the bottom of the head. And if you push too much pressure through, you can blow it out. Now, I have seen, and I have done kind of what they said they did, which is you push air only through it. Instead of water falling it with fluid, fluid creates more pressure. Air doesn't create as much pressure. So you can see just a little bit of air. Some of it's going to come out the nozzles, and you're less likely to blow the head out. So I have done that just to kind of see where it's at. Reverse flush it, pull the ink out, and then push air through. And you'll see, you can even dip the bottom of it in some solution and push it, and you'll see the little bubbles come out. Odds are that head is absolutely straight up trashed on an L1800. Let's see. Ooh. Hey, now. Alrighty, time to get messy. Oh, error message, goodness. We're gonna skip that one for now. Just gonna scroll through a couple more of these and see if there's anything else here that stands out. What do they got running here? They're running an R3000. Okay. Here's a good issue. If you're thinking about buying a printer, this guy here has an R3000, having some trouble with. Let's have a look at what they have happening here.
Housing everything. How we doing, everyone? So this is what I've got here. I've got the 3000. I just recently changed the entire damper setup, all the dampers, the whole housing, everything. Charged all the lines.
Now this printer is basically the same as my 3880 setup wise.
All new ink.
The cartridges are different, same but different.
And this is what happens when I turn it on. Maybe you guys can help me.
All right, so what it's doing right now is it's registering this encoder strip. It's going across it, and it's measuring, kind of figuring out where the print head is in the printer. That's what this little encoder strip does in the back here. Shoots back over. See what's happening here. Back forth, back into the capping station, printer error, turn off, and then try again. So no actual error. Got no actual error happening. Now, what I found is that on the Epsons, I have seen with the R2400s, mainly the FreeJet, it do that. It has been kind of also stuck in line with a motherboard issue. I've seen that with. I've also seen it with a wet cap station issue where it doesn't, what's happening is like the print head's cycling, but it's not completing the cycle. The wet cap station, something in the cycle is interrupted, and it kind of leaves it stuck there in limbo and throws an error.
What's going on?
He doesn't have any other examples there. Let's see if anyone else. He's saying reset your waste ink. Don't think that's it, but I'm gonna say yeah, man. I'm gonna say mainboard failure. That's what I'm going to go with as well. Motherboard. That is the common consensus. Oh, let's see here. Anything else? Print feed issues. Just kind of sitting here. All right, let's we're gonna end on this one, and I'll do some more of these as well. I'll do some more live streams. I know it's not the best time of day to get in here. A lot of people are available around the country, but you can always watch the replay. So look at this. Anybody know what happened? A lot of white dots around the font DTF printer. See this right here? You know what that is? Simple. That is mostly crappy artwork. And what I mean by crappy artwork is that's probably not 300 DPI settings. And when you zoom way in on the pixel level, there's some artifacts here. And you can actually see here, someone's trying to help them by showing them what he means by putting it on a black background in Photoshop and looking for the artifacts. I don't know that they're gonna, yeah, this video is not gonna show any artifacts, but you can see it. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll take artwork that somebody sends me and it looks fine until you blow it up and you go to print it and you realize real quick it's not fine, right? Or you invert it and there's just artifacts around it. It's not super clean. And an easy way to get around that would be to select that artwork in Photoshop. Let's see if we can maybe even show something like this. How about, here we go. Let's try this. Let me zoom in here. Little quick Photoshop trick for you. I don't have to do this on this artwork, so keep that in mind. What I would do is come over here and we're a little bit big on our screen. All right, let's pull Photoshop back a little bit so it fits on my screen here. Okay. You can see my live stream in the background. It's fine. All right. What I do is I come over here and let's just say I'm going to select this happiness layer right here, and I've got artifacts around it. What I would do is select all of these, and you need to remove everything right now. It's on its own layer, so keep that in mind. What I would do is I would select, modify, contract this by say 2 pixels. So make that selection just a little bit smaller. Go to select, go to inverse, and then delete. And that'll delete everything around a little 2 pixel window there, which would, on an image like we just saw, get rid of all those artifacts. We'll just delete everything around it. And you would have a nice, clean, crisp there. Now, we can also do in Photoshop is take a crappy image that's 72 DPI, and you can go in here and change it to 300 DPI. That will help. It will expand the artifacts, but you can also get rid of them, and it'll leave you with a crisper edge when you do so. So, if you found any of this information helpful, this was a decent, it's like 45 minutes. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave me some questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Till next time, you guys stay safe out there, print you some money.